is piqued by that incident, because Bilal radiallahu anhu, in a community where he is socialized to be considered nothing, he was told again and again that he was not worth anything in Mecca. What gives this man the strength to enter into the same streets, the same place where he had been tortured, and to stand on their greatest religious, political symbol, the Kaaba itself, and place the Kaaba at his feet? What gives him the ability to do that? And when you see the transformation of Bilal, the powerful transformation of Bilal radiallahu anhu, the courage that he had and the dignity that he had, you realize that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not just do that with Bilal, he did that with many other companions. Bilal radiallahu anhu was in Mecca and he had the wrong skin color, and he might have even spoken with an accent, and he definitely was not worth anything in Mecca. And yet none of that affects him as he returns back into Mecca, and none of that affected him even while he was living in Mecca and being persecuted in Mecca. So what gave him that level of dignity? And so one thing that I wanted to look at was one recipe that the Prophet ﷺ, or one ingredient in the recipe that Rasulullah ﷺ used to be able to transform his companions. Because his companions were not all people like Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. They were not all Khalid ibn Walid. They were not people who were from the nobility of the tribes, who were given incredible talents of strength and fortitude and courage. His companions were also people like Ammar ibn Yasir. There were also companions who were like Suhaib al-Rumi, or people like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. People who were downtrodden, people who were not carriers of incredible social currency in Mecca. They were not expected to be anything. And so how does he take this one and make him into a master of the Quran? And how does he make this one and turn him into the great symbol of strength that Bilal ibn Rabah became? How does he transform these people and make them maximize their human potential? So one recipe, or one ingredient in the recipe that we will look at very briefly in this khutbah, is that the Prophet ﷺ simply made it haram for a Muslim to be belittled. It's as simple as that. He made it haram for a Muslim to be belittled. In a famous hadith, the Prophet ﷺ stood in front of his companions and he said a number of things. He said, "La tahasadu," don't envy one another. "Wala tanajashu," don't undercut one another in dealings. "Wala tadabaru," and don't turn your backs on one another. "Wala tabaghadu," and don't hate one another. وَكُونُوا عِبَادَ اللَّهِ إِخْوَانًا, and be the servants of Allah all together as brothers. الْمُسْلِمُ أَخُو الْمُسْلِمِ, the Muslim is the brother of the other Muslim. لَا يَظْلِمُ, he doesn't surrender him. He doesn't oppress him. وَلَا يَكْذِبُ, he doesn't belie him. وَلَا يُسْلِمُ, he doesn't surrender him. وَلَا يَحْقِرُ, and he doesn't belittle him. And then he said, التَّقْوَى هَا هُنَا, and then he pointed to his chest 3 times. And then he said, بِحَسْبِ امْرِئٍ مِّنَ الشَّرِّ أَن يَحْقِرَ أَخَاهُ الْمُسْلِمِ, it is enough of an evil that a person belittles their Muslim brother. What does that mean? It means that if the only thing you did today, you came to Salatul Fajr, you prayed Fajr on time before the sunrise, you came to Jum'ah, you did everything good that you could have done. But at the end of the day, the only mistake that you made, the only sin that you made, was that you belittled your Muslim brother or sister. That is enough of an evil. The only thing you did was that you called your brother stupid. The only thing you did was you called your sister ugly. The only thing you did was you called your son a donkey. The only thing that you did is you belittled a Muslim. Then that is enough. بِحَسْبِ امْرِئٍ مِّنَ الشَّرِّ, it is enough of an evil that a person belittles their Muslim brother. And when you look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, you see many examples of him correcting that behavior. So for example, one of the most obvious reasons that a person is belittled is because of their race. So the first thing we see, this person is white, this person is black, this person is brown. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu, on one occasion, he called out to Bilal ibn Rabah. And he called out to him and he said, Ya ibn as-Sawda, O son of a black woman. Now, is Bilal the son of a black woman? Yes, he is. Is Abu Dharr speaking the truth? Yes, he is. Could that have affected Bilal ibn Rabah by being called the son of a black woman by an Arab in an Arab town? Yes. And so Bilal complains to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says to Abu Dharr, أَعَيَّرْتَهُ بِأُمِّهِ إِنَّكَ امْرِئٍ فِيكَ جَاهِلِيَّةٌ. Are you blaming him because of who his mother is? You are a person who has in you ignorance. Is there anybody here who chose their parents? Is there anybody here who chose what country they come from, or what town they come from, or what region of the world that they come from? Is there anybody here who chose their skin color, who chose their nationality? Is there anybody here who chose the way that they look? And so for you to blame somebody about something or for something that we all had no choice in, then that is an action or a statement of ignorance. And so Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says to Abu Dharr, إِنَّكَ امْرِئٍ فِيكَ جَاهِلِيَّةٌ. You are a person who has in you ignorance. Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, of course, he's a great companion. I don't want you to think ill of him. And so he humbles himself immediately and he places his cheek on the ground and he says to Bilal ibn Rabah, step on my face. And Bilal doesn't step on his face because he's a great companion too. And he forgives him in that moment. But the point is, the Prophet ﷺ did not allow for that belittling. Another reason why people are belittled is because of their physical stature. This person is very, very skinny, so you call them a toothpick. This person is very, very heavy, so you call them fat. This person is very tall, so you ask them all the time, how's the weather up there? This person is very short, so you make fun of them because they're short. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was a very short companion, he was a very skinny companion. And on one occasion, he was climbing a tree. And so when he climbed the tree, the wind began to blow, and the Sahaba saw how skinny his legs were, and they started to laugh. His legs are so skinny. Now the problem with laughing at people is that you don't know where people's insecurities lie. When you make fun of that thing that that person has, and it's no big deal, right? But you don't know where their fragility or their insecurity lies. And so the Prophet ﷺ hears them laughing. And he says, أَتَضْحَكُونَ مِنْ دِقَّةِ سَاقَيْهِ وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَهُمَا أَثْقَلُ فِي الْمِيزَانِ مِنْ جَبَلِ أُحُدٍ. He says, are you laughing at how skinny his legs are? By the one in whose hand is my soul. Those legs on the day of judgment are going to outweigh the mountain of Uhud. And so you can imagine Abdullah ibn Mas'ud coming down from that tree and he's thinking, man, I am heavy. I am heavy. And the genius of Rasulullah ﷺ is that he takes the very cause of a person's insecurity and he turns it into a cause of incredible confidence. And so whenever you read about the manaqib of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, the virtues of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, you read that those skinny legs of Abdullah on the day of judgment are going to outweigh that great mountain of Uhud that covers the northern landscape of the city of Medina. Another reason why people are belittled is because of their ethnic background. And so Safiya bint Huyay ibn Akhtab radiallahu anha, al-Mu'mineen. Safiya is ethnically Jewish. The Prophet ﷺ married her after the conquest of Khaybar. And so at times, when the wives of the Prophet ﷺ would be, catty, there would be some sort of friction between them, they would call out to Safiya and they would say to her, Ya Yahudiya, O Jew. Now we all know that when a person calls out to you by your ethnicity, depending on the context, it could be a source of pride or it could be a source of insult. depending on how that person is presenting it and also your relationship with that person. So if someone says to you, oh, you're American, and you're in the Middle East, you know that in the Middle East people have a great affinity or an impression with Americans. So you say, yes, I'm American. But if you're in Europe and they're always looking down on Americans, and say, oh, you're American, you take it somewhat difficultly or differently. Sophia radiallahu anha, she says, she was called out by these women, and they're all Arab, and they say to her, Ya Yahudiya. So she's the odd one out, oh Jew. So she went and complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam about that. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, again, he takes her cause of insecurity and he transforms it into confidence in the most beautiful way. He says, فَإِنْ عَادُوا فَقُولِ لَهُمْ إِنَّ أَبِي هَارُونَ وَعَمِّي مُوسَى وَزَوْجِي مُحَمَّدٍ sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says, if they say that to you again, then tell them that my father, oh, I'm Jewish? Yes, I'll tell you exactly how Jewish I am. My father is Harun, and my uncle is Musa, and my husband is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Honor after honor after honor. Who can compete with that? And so the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, again and again and again, we see him infusing in his Sahaba confidence and confidence and confidence. Another reason why people can be belittled is because of their socio-economic status. This person is wealthy, they look down upon this person who isn't as wealthy as them. This person is very educated, they look down upon the person who is not as educated as them. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, la yaskhar qawmun min qawmin asa an yakunu khayran minhum, wa la nisa'un min nisa'in asa an yakunna khayran minhum. Allah says, let not one group of believers mock another group of believers. Why? It could be the one that you are belittling, mocking, looking down upon. It may be that they are better than you. And let not one group of believing women mock another group of women. Why? Because it may be that they are better than them. There was a companion whose name was Zahir. And he was from Ahlul Badiyah. He was a Bedouin. And the Prophet ﷺ loved him very much. And he used to say, Antum badiyatuna wa nahnu hadirukum. You are our deserts and we are your civilization. And so on one occasion, the Prophet ﷺ found Zahid in the marketplace in Medina and he was selling. And so the Prophet ﷺ came up from behind him and he wrapped his arms around him. And he said, Man yashtari hadha al-abd? Who is going to buy this slave? Who is going to buy this slave? And Zahid was about to break free immediately. He heard the word slave. It's not a joke. He's a free man. He is sold into slavery. And so he said, when I looked behind me, I saw that it was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam smiling at me. I leaned back into him so that my back would touch his chest. And then he made a statement that we have all heard. He said, إِذَنْ تَجِدُنِي كَاسِدًا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. He said, O Messenger of Allah, you're not going to get a lot from me. I'm not worth anything. I'm not a hot commodity. I'm not a Ferrari. You're not going to get a lot of money from me. And why do I say that this is a statement that we have all heard? Is because we all know people who talk like that. I'm not as smart as you. I'm not as gifted as you. I'm not as good as you. They are always belittling themselves. And so what does Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say to Zahid? He says, أَنْتَ لَسْتَ بِكَاسٍ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. He says, you are not a cheap commodity. You are not worth nothing in the sight of Allah. Or he says, وَلَكِنَّكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ غَالٍ. But rather you are in the sight of Allah very, very expensive. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam again and again and again is lifting the confidence of his companions. This one and that one and this one and that one. And so we learn from this not only to never belittle a believing Muslim, our brothers and sisters in Islam, but also that we do the opposite. The prophetic way is to not only never belittle them, but to always raise up their confidence, raise their self-esteem, raise their self-worth, their sense of self-worth. أقول ما سمعتم واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. So the homework from this khutbah is going to be very, very easy. And that homework is simply that we never ever belittle a Muslim. That's as simple as that. That we change from our language any insulting usage, any insulting wording that we use, any way that we talk to each other that harms, any way that we talk to each other that belittles each other. And why is this important? A lot of times people, they say, their response is, yeah, but this is the way that we talk. This is the way that we grew up talking. This is the way that our culture is like this. Well, anytime that our culture goes against prophetic instruction, what Rasulullah ﷺ has commanded us to do, then the response of the believer is to do away with that culture. You simply get rid of it. I understand that many families, they get together and they sit there and they insult each other, and that's the way that they show love. But if it is something that goes against what the Prophet ﷺ has commanded us to do, then we are commanded to change. The Sahaba transformed so much about themselves. There was so much that was a part of their culture, and whenever the Prophet ﷺ commanded them to change something, they would change something. I want you to think about this. Rasulullah ﷺ, it got to the level, the Prophet ﷺ was even sensitive to people's names. If he came to Medina and he found that somebody had a name that didn't carry a positive meaning, he would change that person's name. What does that tell you about the Prophet's attention to psychology, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and people's self-image and people's self-esteem? And so the Sahaba, they learned this from Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They learned to infuse confidence in each other. And so Abdullah ibn Abbas, who was a young man when Umar ibn Khattab used to bring him into his circles, and Umar is Amirul Mu'mineen, and Abdullah would be shy to speak in the company of great Sahaba who were much older than him, people who were the age of his father. Just like many of us, when we're sitting in our living rooms, our kids are very quiet, they don't say anything. They might listen to what the uncles are talking about, but they don't share with a single word, because they're not supposed to speak, maybe. Or maybe they're too shy to speak. So Abdullah ibn Abbas would say to Amir al-Mu'mineen later, privately, "Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, I had an opinion that was different than everybody's." And so Umar would say to him, "قُلْ يَا ابْنِ أَخْ وَلَا تَحْقِرْ نَفْسَكَ." Speak, my nephew, or speak, my son. Speak in the gathering, and don't belittle yourself. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum would have such a self-esteem about themselves that Rib'i ibn Ammar, who's 19 years old, 19 years old, for us, we'd consider that person still a kid. Definitely not an ambassador to the Muslim community. At the level that Rib'i ibn Ammar was, he was sent as the ambassador of the Muslims to one of the great superpowers of the world, the Persian Empire. And at that age, he is able to summarize the mission statement of the Muslims in a way that would be shared from one generation to the next until this moment here. People are still quoting that great statement of Rib'i ibn Ammar, who said, radiallahu anhu, when they asked him, they said, what do you guys want? You Arabs, what are you here for? Do you need some sort of assistance? Do you need some sort of food? And he says to him, no, not at all. نحن قوم, we are a people, ابتعثنا الله, whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent. لإخراج العباد من عبادة العباد إلى عبادة رب العباد. We are a people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to remove mankind from the worship of creation to the worship of the Lord of the creation. ومن جور الأديان إلى عدل الإسلام, from the oppression of religion to the justice of Islam. And from the constrictness of this world, ومن ضيق الدنيا إلى سعة الدنيا والآخرة, to the expansiveness of the dunya and the hereafter. But you're not going to have personalities like this unless we are a community that raises personalities like this. One of the great mujaddids of this ummah, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, when he was a young child, he was very impressed with his great uncle, Abdullah ibn Umar. And so he would tell his mother, when I grow up, I want to be like Abdullah ibn Umar. And so his mother told him, and she said, "Oh my son, I want you to be better than Abdullah." This is an amazing statement from a mother. Imagine if one of our kids said, I want to be like Umar ibn Khattab. What would you say to them? You're not going to be like Umar ibn Khattab, and you're not going to be anything close to him. What do you imagine, right? But she tells her son, she says, I want you to be better than Abdullah ibn Umar. Now, how are you going to be better than a Sahabi? You're not going to be better than a Sahabi. But if your goal is to be better than a Sahabi, what are you going to end up being if that's your goal? You're going to end up being the greatest of your generation. And that's who Umar ibn Abdul Aziz became. And so, to summarize, for those who just got here, our khutbah today is simply about belittling people and how the Prophet ﷺ made it forbidden, and that we have to change our language, that we remove from our discourse any sort of insulting behavior, even when it comes to our own children. Why? A lot of times people, they think of their children as their own possessions, but we have to remember that these children, before they are our possessions, they belong to who? They belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah gave them a sanctity that is theirs, irrespective of your relationship with them. Allah gave your wife or gave your husband a sanctity that is irrespective of your relationship with them. Every Muslim has a sanctity. The Prophet ﷺ says, كُلُّ الْمُسْلِمِ عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِ حَرَامٌ. Every aspect of a Muslim to another Muslim is haram. Their dam, their blood, and their wealth, and their honor. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who follow the speech and hear the speech and follow the best of it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to that which He loves, and to grant us His love, and the actions that guide us His love. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannah wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin wa 'amal, wa na'udhu bika min an-nar wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin wa 'amal. Allahumma ati nufusana taqwaha, zakkiha anta khayru man zakkaha, anta waliyuha wa mawlaha. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا ومتعنا اللهم بأسماعنا وأبصارنا وقواتنا أبدا ما أبقيتنا واجعله الوارث منا واجعل ثأرنا على من ظلمنا وانصرنا اللهم على من عادانا ولا تجعل مصيبتنا في ديننا ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا إلى النار مصيرنا واجعل الجنة هي دارنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اللهم رحماك بأهلنا المستضعفين المنكوبين في كل مكان. اللهم رحماك بأهلنا في اليمن. اللهم رحماك بأهلنا في بورما وفي فلسطين وسوريا وأفريقيا الوسطى وسائر بلاد المسلمين. اللهم تكن لهم ولا تكن عليهم. زلزل عروش الطواغيت الظالمين وأتى بفرج قريب لعبادك الموحدين واشف صدور قوم المؤمنين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. قوموا إلى صلاتكم.